In the final two parts of this module, we'll look at ways of reporting evidence in your own words. As we've seen, evidence can be transferred by quoting or by reporting. There are two ways to report, by paraphrasing or summarizing. Paraphrasing refers to using a combination of your own words and those of the source. In a close paraphrase, for example, when one sentence in the source becomes one sentence in your paraphrase, you'll use approximately the same number of words as in the original. Summarizing, on the other hand, refers to using a combination of your own words and those of the source to produce a shorter and more condensed version of the original. You can condense several sentences, several paragraphs, or even an entire article into a single sentence in your summary. In this section, we'll look at paraphrasing. If you understand the original text correctly in the first place, your chances of using your own words to paraphrase it accurately are much higher. You could try explaining it to a friend or raise it in a seminar or tutorial and seek some feedback. To understand the original text that you want to paraphrase, first use the structure of the text to distinguish between the main points and the details. You then have to think how the information contributes to your explanation or argument. So your paraphrase may order the information in quite a different way to the original. It may have its focus on aspects which are not the main focus of the original, or it may incorporate ideas from a number of sources. Finally, it's important to note that paraphrasing has a positive side. It's not just about avoiding plagiarism. To paraphrase successfully, you need to understand what you're reading. Processing the information by putting it into your own words helps you to remember it. Secondly, using your own words allows you to express your argument more clearly and to make your sentences flow more smoothly. Let's first look at the structure of a short text. You can pause the module to skim read it. As you do, try to identify what the writer is doing at various stages of the text. At the beginning of the text, the writer defines urbanization. In the next stage, the writer explains the causes of urbanization. And here, the results of urbanization are described. In the final stage, the writer provides examples of urbanization. Scanning a text for its structure can help you when you want to transfer information from a source. You can more efficiently find the information which is suitable for your purpose. First, try to use a combination of your own words and structures and the words and structures from the original. It's often a combination because it may not be possible to change some of the technical or specialist vocabulary in the original. Second, the best way to paraphrase is to try to understand the information thoroughly first, then put the source aside and write your own version from your notes and/or your memory. Your paraphrase will very likely contain some synonyms to replace words in the source and restructured sentences which are different to the original. However, you should not rely simply on a mechanical substitution of words and phrases. Sometimes you can't avoid doing this, and we'll look at some techniques involved in a moment. But this kind of mechanical substitution should be kept to a minimum for a number of reasons. It doesn't really help your learning of the material. The way the original author has expressed the ideas may not fit the flow of your paragraph. and the original author's purpose may not suit your purpose. So remember that everything you write must contribute directly or indirectly to your argument or explanation. Next, acknowledge the source of your paraphrase or summary by using the correct referencing convention. Even though you're using your own words, you still have to acknowledge, through referencing, where the idea came from. You should check to see whether the referencing system you use requires page numbers for paraphrased information. In some cases, especially when referring to a particular idea in a work, rather than to the general idea of a whole work, you must put in page numbers. For example, the Harvard system requires it. The APA system recommends it. There are many quirks and variations in referencing, so it's worth looking at the guides on the Fisher Library website. Finally, plan ahead. It's important to follow the formatting requirements carefully to ensure that you won't accidentally plagiarize. This is where study and planning skills are important. It's difficult to be accurate if you don't have enough time before the submission deadline. Let's look at an example. Compare this sample paraphrase with the original text. You can pause the presentation for a moment to read both texts. There are several problems with the paraphrase. First, no reference is given. Second, while some of the words and phrases have been changed, many remain the same. Third, while the sentence structure has undergone minor changes, for example, swapping the order of words, the overall structure of the paraphrase reflects the original very closely. Now compare the second sample paraphrase with the original text. Again, you can pause the presentation. In paraphrase 2, every content word is different to the content words of the source. Only grammatical words like to and where remain unchanged. This paraphrase would be acceptable, but it still largely reflects the structure of the original. Whether or not this is an appropriate structure depends on the student writer's purpose and on the surrounding context. In other words, does it fit with the argument and the flow of the paragraph? If you've tried to write a close paraphrase based on your memorized understanding of the source, but are still having difficulty, you can try some language strategies to get you started. For example, you can select one element of the original and change its form, say from a verb to a noun. This will have a flow-on effect, and you'll need to change other words and phrases to make your new sentence work. Here's an example. Can you see what words appear in different forms? You might like to pause the presentation for a moment. You should be able to see that the noun consolidation has been changed to the verb consolidated. One form of the verb enabled has changed to a different form, enabling. The noun utilization has been changed to a verb with a similar meaning, used, and so on. Another technique involves changing the voice of the verb. As you can see from the example, the great advantage lies in the change in the structure of the rest of the sentence. So the subject of the first sentence, the shelf life of only a few kinds of fruits, becomes the object of the second sentence. And the element at the end of the first sentence, by irradiation treatment, becomes the subject of the second sentence, irradiation.